All right, welcome back. This is going to be a fun panel discussion, or a fireside to chat we have right here. I have Kim Kircher. She is the Health and Wellbeing Advisor for the Independent Grocers Alliance, and we're going to be chatting about what's in your cart, food for thought for today's shopper. Before we begin, Kim, let's talk about what does the IGA do and what is your role in it?
So they are literally what the name says, independent grocers. So we're all across the country and around the world, actually. And if you think of your neighborhood grocery store, that's us.
Awesome. So what does a Health and Wellbeing Advisor do for the Independent Grocer Association?
I love that question too. I'm a registered dietitian, so my job is to help educate our retailers and answer their questions when they get shopper questions, and also educate our employees and our shoppers. So if you come in on a Tuesday and you're looking for something for dinner and you need some inspiration, we actually have a website called IGABetterChoices.com. Every month I pick the content that goes on there. I write a blog, I do a video, and it's basically answering what's on people's minds. So last month was Heart Month. We had a lot of stuff about heart smart eating. This month is Frozen Foods Month and National Nutrition Month. So it's timely topics, it's recipes, planning, shopping tips, food safety. We have wellness and lifestyle tips on there, so getting active, all that kind of stuff.
How has your job changed? So now people have access to more information than ever.
Yes.
Some of it accurate,
yes.
Some of it inaccurate,
yes.
Some of it less accurate, right? Like
yep.
It seems like I can, in any given day, whether I'm on Twitter or Facebook or just on the web and some ad is flashing in front of me, they're telling me how to lose my gut, or they're telling me what foods to avoid, or some lie that's being perpetrated by some big, fill in the blank. How has your job changed since this has become more prevalent?
You described it so well. It's crazy. There's information coming from everywhere. And so when I first got out of grad school, the conversation as an outpatient dietitian in a hospital or a fitness center was, hey, maybe you need to increase your fiber foods. Maybe there's something that you need to learn a little bit more about calcium, or perhaps you need to learn some lower fat cooking techniques. And I could say you might want to try roasting or broasting. And then you fast forward a couple of years, and all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a second, people aren't cooking as much. So you spend time still talking about their chronic disease or whatever they're trying to do, lose weight. Then you talk about what they're supposed to do differently or foods to incorporate, but then you're also spending more time talking about what does that mean? What does roasting actually mean? So then you fast forward again and people start asking, well, what's happening on farm? And if you think about that, about 2% of our population in this country is attached to agriculture. So it's really no wonder that those questions are coming to mind, those farm to table authentic questions. So you've got this huge conversation and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And to your point, there's all these people trying to answer those questions. Some are very passionate and loud, and some actually know what they're talking about. And it's people just being scared, like you heard from the last speaker, like, I don't even know who to listen to anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky conversation. But the good news is people are still wanting taste, convenience, a good price, how to do it, be confident in the kitchen. So that is all staying the same. And then you've got these other things to answer too.
That actually rolls into my next question, which is, taste and convenience. We see a lot more grocery stores opening up more grab and go type things. How involved are you as part of your alliance, like in helping them decide what menu items to put together? Or is that something, are you speaking in more broader terms? But like, I'll go to the store and pick up a roast chicken because it's just easier, right? Like I can go and it's relatively healthy, right? And then you see a lot more people doing that. What is that? How does that change what you do?
I think the best way to think about what a dietitian like me does is my job is to listen to you, to hear what you like to eat, what your family has taught you about, what your cooking skills are, and then get informed to do it better. So I'm never going to say to you, oh, you have to buy this or you have to do that. But I'm going to say, what do you like to eat? What's your favorite thing? And then we're going to navigate around that. So health and wellness is a tricky conversation for businesses if we take that hat and put it on, because it's such a different journey for everyone.
Yeah.
And as a business, as a retailer, as a company that's doing appliances or whatever you're doing, you can't be everything to everyone, but you have to be an authentic you. So you help people find their way to you to navigate what feels comfortable to them and do it the best way possible.
How much of your time is spent now that, so we talked about consumers having access to information, but that means you have access to more information.
Right.
So how does that change? Like, how much do you have to stay on top of Eureka Alert or whatever, where some study is published and you're like, oh, okay. this needs to adjust, and you now just have more, you know, before you probably, like you said, you got out of grad school, you had all your textbook information, but now you've got a new study that's coming out every day. How do you, go through the information and figure out what's important or what to pay attention to?
That's a great question for all of us, so thank you for asking me that, because I feel like, just like for the lay audience, I'm gonna not use the word consumer because I feel like it's this term that's out there like, oh, there's all these people. But for individuals and for health professionals, we have all this information coming at us too, and we know science changes. Food is this incredible topic that we don't know everything about just yet. So as the science evolves, sometimes our recommendations change because we learn more, the science changes, and that becomes the tricky part of the conversation. So I would say, when you look at a dietitian or you look at a health professional, that's one question you as an audience would want to say is, how are you keeping up to date? So for me in the state of Illinois, I'm licensed. There's a continuing ed requirement for that. As a registered dietitian, there's a continuing ed requirement for that. So you look at those different health professionals and the training they get and what we're required to do and what we want to do to stay up to date. That helps a lot. Talking to people is really good too. I hear about a lot of trends from people. I just had one of our store directors call me the other day and say, hey, what do you know about this particular product? So we had this great conversation about it. And I knew some, I researched it a little bit more. So having a two-way dialogue right now is incredibly important in health and well-being.
Now, you have a blog, right?
I do.
And what is your blog so people can find it?
Yep, so I have two. It's IGABetterChoices.com, so I write every month on that, and then KimKircher.com.
Okay. What do you recommend for people who are inundated by all of this information online as they head to the grocery store, right? Like, fat used to be bad, fat's not so bad anymore. Sugar is gonna kill you, as will any kind of sugar substitute, right? Like, what do you recommend to people so they can be better equipped when they go to the grocery store?
I think there's two things. The first one is to remember the word moderation and really what that means. Not try to trick yourself, but if you overdo anything in a large amount, it probably means you're not as balanced as you could be with your other food groups even. So moderation is key for everything. And I always say if you're eating party food and there's no party, you probably need to adjust your intake. So there's that. And then it's how to think about stuff. And that's a lot about what I talk about in blogs is how do you sort through and navigate? What are the questions you need to ask of the person who is telling you what to do? So the first question is, why are they telling me what to do? Are they hearing me and trying to solve a problem for me? Or are they saying, you should do this and this is important? There's a difference there. Find out what their motivation is. And if they're telling you what to do, why? What's their why, if you will? And then when you look at what's their source, passion is great, but if you've got no training in a topic, passion doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And we've got so many different sources of information coming at us. Lots of times there's a little bit of truth. I always like to look for the positive, like every trendy diet that's out there. Some of them, hey, if you're eating more vegetables, fantastic, let's hang on to that. Let's find that truth, and then let's course correct the other parts of it. So I don't think you can ever have a completely bad conversation about food or have a completely bad source of information completely, but you have to know the right questions to ask and you have to know the training of the people who are trying to tell you what to do and their motivation.
So meal kits were a big trend in the past year, right? And we see that sort of evolving and changing. There's some stumbling blocks along the way. Do you have any thought on sort of the meal kits that you've seen and how they tie into people's overall well-being and health and wellness?
I love that too. I think there's so many fun choices for people, and sometimes people just have no idea what to make. So if you get this thing that's like a little gift, if you will, and everything's in there, fantastic. If it gets you to try something new, it gets you in the kitchen and makes you more confident, I think that's a really fun piece of it. I think the other way to think about it is always think about the fact that you can create your own for yourself too. So if you've got a favorite recipe, everybody's got their smartphone with them. I take pictures of my favorite recipe. I still use cookbooks too. Or if I find something online, I download it or whatever. So I've got that recipe and that becomes your shopping list. You can make your own meal kit that way too. So I think there's a couple fun ways to kind of go about that, but I think it's another great option for people.
Well, and I think you touch on something that's actually a growing trend, which is the idea of the combination of the shoppable recipe. So you can find something online and click a button and all of those things are added to an online grocery cart. And then you can have that delivered the same day. So recipes become this commerce and discovery and commerce platform, not just inspiration. You can actually take action with them. And so I guess the question being, like, as you work with grocers and getting them like to understand, I mean, I guess it just, you can kind of see from your perspective sort of a bigger shift in what's available to people. It's no longer, I'm trapped by what I have in my pantry and I don't want to go to the store, yes. Right? Like I can have all the food come to me. Yep. So it seems like it opens up a lot of new opportunities for you.
It totally does. Really, the sky's the limit, and I think that's the one thing, if I could tell people to do, is just take 5 minutes to plan. Find that recipe, or if there's a meal kit that you love that you find yourself constantly buying, there's always something and you always have this one leftover, or you always have this one thing in your house. Take those 5 minutes and find a couple other recipes to use with it, because if you can set yourself up and think beyond just that one meal, yeah, you're gonna have a better experience all the time, and you're gonna like that meal that you love even that much more, because all of a sudden, like cilantro is my favorite example. Like you buy this clump of cilantro and you use it for your guacamole, what the heck do you do with the rest of that cilantro? Yeah. There's a million things you can do. There's a million different flavor profiles that you can go after with that. So instead of just looking at that one thing, take that time and plan it out, and all of a sudden your whole meal for the week is going to get easier. It's not just that one moment. Right. And it helps manage food waste too, which is a big deal for people. That is, yes. What are the things grocers are talking to you about right now, independent grocers? People want solutions and they want experiences. So you kind of heard that if you came to the other Smart Talks this morning, there was a lot of those moments and all of the different things from different perspectives. But it's not just about putting a meal on the table. It's not just about giving ourselves nutrients anymore. It's the experience of cooking. And I always give the analogy, like if it's your birthday and somebody makes your favorite meal, that feels good. It feels good when somebody cooks for you. It's now feeling just as good for the person cooking to do it for the other person. So I think if we think about it, like what's the experience, the surround sound, like how does it feel when you're in the store? What's the excitement that you're gonna see? Because I always look at grocery shopping as a fun thing. It's like, it's a scavenger hunt. You never know when you come around the aisle what you're gonna find on an end cap, or there might be some new product, or if a store's getting remodeled, people get nervous because their stuff's all moved around, and I'm like, that's your chance to go find something that you might have passed by a million times, that is your new favorite thing, and you just didn't see it before. So you have to go in expecting something exciting to happen, and I think if you're looking for that, you're gonna find that. As people are more conscientious of where their food comes from, yes. What are there some tools out there you've seen that that can make people, like their ability to go, oh, okay, this fish was sustainably caught or raised or whatever, so they can incorporate that into their overall diet? That's a wonderful question, and asking the right questions and really looking at who's telling you that information. So I had the privilege prior to this job of working for America's Dairy Farmers, and we got to answer people's questions directly from the farmer, and I would say that is key. Make sure that you're looking for the farmer's voice in all of that conversation, connect with them. Local stores like ours have farmers involved in the conversation. That's what you want. On our website this month, we've got a couple of things like how is honey made, learning about dairy and the fact that it's local. You can watch a video about that. So every month we try to incorporate that into our conversation too. But having that authentic farmer's voice in the farm to table conversation, number one, they're amazing. Number two, the decisions that they're making every day when we're at work and they're thinking about our food supply for us, it's an amazing conversation to have, and that's the voice you want. When you talk to a farmer and you can hear from them directly, and a lot of them are in social media. Yeah. Hashtag thank a farmer. You got it. Well, that's interesting about the honey. I wonder if that was spurred by the Netflix documentary that just came out last month. I've known about the site that we've got on our site for a while. What we do is we curate content from unbranded sites, and so take a look and see, and people can go check it out. But that's the fun of it, is every single thing has a story, and I think that's the biggest part of it too. Food has a story. Like, where did it start? Why is it grown the way that it is? How is it harvested? You can watch videos about that from the commodity groups. And you want to watch it, how pistachios are harvested. You can do that. There's videos for that. So it's a really fun thing to see. And as we're so disconnected from the farm, when we start to look into those sources and we can start to have that authenticity, it's really cool. And there's regional differences in food too. Food is grown where it's grown because that's the right place environmentally for it to grow. Natural resources, the climate. I could go on and on about it, but it's a fun piece of the conversation. And I will tell you, it's shared storytelling right now. So as a dietitian, I'll tell you about the nutrition of food. I can help you with a lot of different things, but I want a farmer on my team and I want a chef on my team, because we're all going to have different knowledge that will help answer those questions that you have about your food, and you kind of need all of us now.
Do you think there's an overall change in just, let's take it a step back even further, just in the story of how we eat, just in terms of like a country, and how do you see that story changing as it, or that next chapter in that story being written right now?
I love that question too, because I feel like when you look at food story, there's a cultural reason for it. There's a reason why we as humans, if you will, started eating or drinking certain things. And I think there's a bigger interest right now in that storytelling piece of it. So that's been something that I've been exploring too. And I actually found this great map that talked about the reason that there's different cultural cuisines is it was kind of the right place for that food or product to be grown or raised.
Yeah.
So you start to look into that piece of the story. There's such an interest in global cuisine right now and ethnic cuisines. It's kind of the first way that we can get into a culture and understand another culture very easily, if you will. And it's fun. You know, trying foods from different places is fun. But when we start to really, well, what's the why? Like, why, where did that come from? Why was it part of that culture? There's an authenticity there that just brings the food to life in a whole new way, if you will.
Aside from moderation,
yes.
What are some common things that you tell people, like based on the changing science and the changing, you know, you're keeping up with things. What are some things? Yes, moderation is important. I shouldn't eat the entire bag of M&Ms, but they're sitting right there. What are some other things that you could probably pass on to people? Don't
let fear drive your decisions. Think about what you know is right. Think about balance in your food groups. We have 5 food groups to choose from. And if you remember when the food pyramid went away and my plate came in, you got that nice visual of a plate. We all kind of eat off of a plate. One of the favorite things that I think that visual did for us is half your plate should be fruits and vegetables. Mm-hmm. You've got room for lean protein, you've got room for whole grains, and you've got room for a serving of dairy. So if you keep that visual in mind, it's so simple, but it's actually based in science. And I think if we think about it, a favorite story is I had a patient one time years ago, and she considered herself a great fruit and vegetable eater. Well, she was keeping a food log for me, which is a super boring task, but really helpful. And she said, Kim, as I was typing up my notes for you, I realized I went the whole week and I did not eat one fruit or vegetable. Not fresh, not canned, not dried, nothing. And she's like, I had no idea. And so it became this mindful thing. And so to answer your question, oversimplifying it, but with science in mind, but something totally actionable, half your plate fruits and vegetables. If you're not eating fruits and vegetables every single day, the American public is not eating their fruits and vegetables, and the 3 food groups we're not getting enough of: fruits, vegetables, dairy.
Okay, good to know. Mm-hmm. What are the issues that that your independent grocers are coming to you with? Is there something related to, we talked about farms, you know, earlier, they're working with them, but is there something, are there other things that they are either concerned about or happy about that are going on right now that they express to you? Yeah, and I would say it's the same as what's on our minds as shoppers too, is what's going on with literally what I'm gonna make for dinner that night. I mean, it's pretty basic sometimes, like what's the right meal? Yeah. What do I do about these questions that I'm getting that I heard on social media, or this celebrity told me that, or whatever, and it's like, let's boil it down and just say, okay, let's get to the nitty gritty of this and let's really get back to the basics. I think there's room for that. And you know, food safety, hand washing, washing your fruits and vegetables doesn't sound like really big news, but when you think about that, it alleviates a lot of the concerns people have about their food. So treat your food right, learn proper cooking temperatures, things like that, and it's really back to the basics to help answer people's questions as they're coming into the store about what's for dinner, what's the next new thing, what's in season, and what should I be doing if I have a chronic disease in my family or I want to prevent one, because you can do both of those things really with your lifestyle choices. And you know, I want to ask you, what kinds of this? We're at the Smart Home Pavilion. Yep. How do you incorporate technology into the way that you prepare your own meals or the way you shop? I kind of love it for so many reasons, because you can pull up a recipe when you're grocery shopping, like what was that one ingredient that I never have in the house that I need for a recipe? What I love also is, just like I was saying, the evolution of our conversation with our patients or our audiences. I no longer have to spend as much time talking about cooking techniques
or food storage tips, things like that, because our refrigerators are helping us with that. Our appliances in general are helping us with that. You can get that information from an app on your smartphone. So it's gonna let me dive deeper into a conversation with people on their chronic disease that they're trying to manage or whatever else is on their mind. So I think technology, not just for me, becomes my partner in the whole cooking process. You look at a recipe and there's a word in there that you have no idea what that means. You can look it up and instantly you got your answer. So I think if we look at technology wherever it is as our partner, it's our sous chef, if you will.
Yeah.
The other question I would have people ask is, what is the database source? So if you're shopping online and you've got diabetes, you still want to make sure you're working with a health professional somewhere in that process to make sure that what you're being told is the right thing for you.
And what should people look for when looking for a dietitian?
Great question too. Most states in the United States have licensure, and RD or RDN stands for Registered Dietitian or Registered Dietitian Nutritionist.
Okay.
You can actually go to our Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics professional website, Eat Right Pro, or eatright.org, depending on which way you want to search. They're on the same site, and you can search for a dietitian that way.
And how do you work with clients, right, or with people? Like, what should people expect when working with a dietitian? It's like the idea of a dietitian has always been kind of interesting to me, but like I didn't know what it would, it's like someone's just going to tell me eat vegetables, right? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to make a point, like being reductive, right? Like I'm not getting the nuance of what it is you actually do.
Yep. So if you were to come in to see somebody who one-on-one with a consultation, you would have maybe gone to your doctor and gotten a new diagnosis of diabetes or high cholesterol or whatever the case may be, and a dietitian would sit down, look at that, have a conversation with what you and your doctor talked about, hopefully look at your labs. That's really what you want. Like when you see me in a grocery store, I'm not going to have that in-depth conversation with you. I'm going to talk at a higher level. But when you're talking one-on-one with somebody, like let's say in a hospital or a clinic, they're going to say, okay, well, let's look at your lab work. What do you eat? We're going to have a conversation about what a typical day looks like for you. When do you start your day? What's the first meal you have? Talk to you a little bit about getting to know your food style and what your food tastes are, and where do we need to maybe pivot a little bit to help you learn a different way to look at your food. Diabetes is one of my favorite things to talk about because you have to think about your food maybe very differently than you used to. So my favorite quote would be I say this all the time right now, is you don't know what you don't know until you know that you don't know it.
Yes.
And so like with diabetes, the carbohydrate content of foods is really important for you to understand. How does that work? How does your body react to it? So you'd have that kind of in-depth conversation with a dietitian.
Awesome. And in our final minute here, here's what I just want to know. You do health, wellness, and well-being, but what's your favorite cheat?
I actually don't think in terms of cheat. I think there's a place for everything. Indulgence, yes. So I love my chocolate birthday cake that my mom makes for all of us in my family every year. If it's going to be a cookie, it's got to be a really good, very freshly baked, warm chocolate chip cookie.
Oh yeah, there's nothing better.
I like to work out so I can have those moments, but my thing is if I eat out, which I don't do often, I like to try foods that I don't make for myself at home. So I'm very adventurous when I go somewhere else, and I will try pretty much anything because I think that's part of the fun of it.
Well, Kim, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome.